Pikachu?
Last year, whilst I was off work, I watched J-Rose11's video, Can You Beat Red and Blue with Just a Magikarp? I watched it with so much joy and loved the fact that someone had the bollocks to give it a go. Now since that point, I've found more videos of people who have done more insane runs using only a particular Pokemon. The three that I've enjoyed the most are Pikaspray, Alpharad and Jake McCauley, and the links are in the description. Because of how much joy it seemed to bring people, I decided to do my own video and see how hard could one of these challenges really be. I realised that Magikarp had not yet completed Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee by itself, so I thought that would be a good challenge to take on. Like with all challenges, there are strict self-imposed rules I have to follow. I must only use Magikarp for the majority of the game. This seems like I'm already failing it already, but trust me, you'll understand why I say this later on. The only candies I can use are rare candies. This is because candies are stat boosting items which essentially make Magikarp a god, and there is simply no challenge in doing that. Only one trade allowed, again you'll see why later on. No use of glitches, but since I don't know about any glitches in the game, this shouldn't be a problem. So we start our game like any other and listen to Professor Oak babble on about the world of Pokemon. I call myself HBT and call my rival Not Blue simply because you are not blue and you disgust me. Honestly, I think you are the worst rival along with How, and I absolutely loathed him. I leave my house and head off to go see Professor Oak, where we're rudely disturbed by a Pikachu. I did not want to catch it, but apparently it's mandatory. After Pikachu gives us the old run around and chucks itself on a table, I end up getting it for real. I decide to give it the name Second Fiddle because essentially that is what she'll be going through this entire playthrough. I receive the Pokedex from Professor Oak and begin my journey. So doing this, I go through Route 1 to Viridian City and pick up the parcel from Professor Oak. On attempting to leave the lab, my rival decides he actually wants to have his first fight. Now this is a fight I easily win, and you're probably thinking, hang on, you're supposed to be doing this with just Magikarp, and you'd be correct. At this point I don't have access to Magikarp and I'm unable to trade at this point. After I leave the lab I catch a Pidgey and an Oddish, and finally I can now trade. I managed to organise a Magikarp trade from a guy called Ethan who sends me over the god called Magikarp. Thank you so much for this, Ethan. I could not have started this challenge without you. And there we have it, one female Magikarp. We actually forgot to nickname her, but for the sake of this I'm going to be calling her Wanda for this run. It's always good to have a fish called Wanda. Ethan managed to get me one at level 5 and it was adamant. This was key because Magikarp's stats are terrible and I need all the attack points I can get. Now I shouldn't really need to say this, but Magikarp begins with Splash and won't learn Tackle until level 15. In the runs completed by other people doing the Red and Blue challenge with Magikarp, they get to the magic number by fighting Metapods over and over again until they run out of Splash and use Struggle. Well, here lies the problem. I can't do that method because wild battles now involve you catching Pokemon rather than battling. I suppose yes, I could fight the trainers in Viridian Forest for XP, but there's an option that's not available to me. Why? Because there's a youngster trainer waiting at the end of Route 1 who you're forced to battle with. And with my current level there's no way that Magikarp can beat the trainer even with using the potion, so you're effectively stuck on Route 1 and the challenge is over before it even begins. Well, not necessarily. Professor Oak gave us 50 Pokeballs at the start of the journey, and it is with these balls we find a solution. I've already used 2 balls so I can trade Magikarp, which means I have 48 balls to get from level 5 to level 15. I either have the choice of Pidgey, Rattata or Oddish. I work out if I'm going to do this I need to get a high combo chain and excellent throws on nearly everyone if I stand any chance. Missing a throw, the Pokemon breaking out or blocking it will wreck the whole thing. I first tried Pidgey but found it was too hard because it was bouncing around like an idiot to get the perfect timing. I then tried Oddish because I worked out you get more experience and it's easier to get an excellent throw. With a lot of patience I finally caught enough Oddishes to get myself to level 15. Finally I have Tackle and to take on that bloody Rattata. However, when the battle begins I realised something and it hit me like a truck. This Magikarp was in fact traded as we saw earlier, which meant it wasn't going to listen to me without the right badges. I'd completely forgotten about this game mechanic and I realised this challenge had now got a lot harder. Now for those who don't know, when you receive a Pokemon for a trade, it may not listen to your orders. This will depend on the level your Pokemon is and if you have the right badge. Now, from my memory, beating Brock will allow Pokemon up to level 20 to obey me, beating Misty will allow up to level 30, beating Erica will allow to level 50, and beating Blaine will allow up to level 70, and finally beating Giovanni will allow Pokemon of any level to obey you. So yeah, this is going to be a battle of wills. Knowing this, I decided to keep going and cracked on through the Viridian Forest. First of all, I had to get rid of all my splashes, which I'll explain why later, but this took absolutely forever. So much so that the opposing Pokemon actually ran out of moves, so they struggled against themselves. I made it through Pewter City where I started watching a Slowpoke. This nets you 4,000 Poké Dollars and can be done each day. Because I'm going to be upfront about this, I need money and a lot of it. Money is going to be a problem for quite a while. So with my extra cash, I stock up on potions and Pokeballs because I'm going to need them. Hang on, going back to the Slowpoke. If you watch this again with a bit of careless whisper, and I wonder why the trainer is squatting behind the Slowpoke, it's a bit, I don't know, you know... I try and take on one of Brock's students at level 15, however with a mixture of Geodude using defense curls, Wonder refusing to listen, and the fact Tackle did absolutely nothing, I realised that Brock was going to be very difficult. But then I decided to take on Brock, now having access to the one move I needed, Struggle. After Generation 1, Struggle became a neutral damaging move, however much to my shock and horror, I now had another problem to deal with. In previous generations, using Struggle would cause recoil damage of half what you inflicted. This was then reduced to a quarter in future games, however it's been so long since I've had to use the move, Struggle now takes 1/4 of your maximum health off the user regardless how much damage you do to your opponent. So this is a situation I'm now facing. I'm using a Magikarp. I'm using a Pokemon with some of the worst stats in the game. It doesn't listen to me, and one of my only attacking options does 1/4 off my own health each turn. So I realised pretty quickly I wasn't going to beat Brock at this level. I went back and grinded once again, going after Odysseus, and got myself up to level 20 to attempt to fight Brock once more. His Geodude was no problem, but I was having to constantly heal due to the recoil damage being done by Struggle. Next up was Onix, and in reality, if you had this in a proper fight, Magikarp versus an Onix, the Onix would just turn it into a flathead. It's a fish against a giant rock snake, which is so realistic. But after Onix was using his headbutt, it was only doing 4 HP, so I knew I was going to win this. But it just became a battle of managing my health and hoping that Wanda actually wanted to have a fight, because she just wasn't listening to me. After a stressful few minutes, Onix had fallen and I'd done it. I'd got the Boulder Badge, which meant that Pokemon up to level 20 will listen to me. But this meant I had one more level before Wanda wasn't going to listen to me once again. I meet the real Blue, who decides to give me his balls, and I continue on my way. It's now at this point I do something very silly and forget that I still had Tackle as an option. For a long time going forward, I continued to use Struggle, and this makes the game a lot harder, so mock me now, it's ridiculous, I keep using Struggle, I completely forgot to use Tackle. I managed to arrive at Mount Moon without much incident, but I was going in worried about the amount of hikers that I could end up facing, because let's be honest, they're everywhere. I meet Team Rocket for the first time, hunting for fossils, and then I meet a Bellsprout. Whilst I end up beating it the first time round, the recoil from the Struggle ends up finishing me off. Second time round, she falls to my awesome fish power. I grab an ether and realising we need a lot of these by the end of the game. I end up facing my first Team Rocket grunt, which there wasn't too much problems, and they're more annoying than anything else. And then, oh boy, Super Nerd Miguel. Now, I knew this was going to be a problem because he had 2 electric Pokemon. I had Tackle back because I'd used an ether, but his Thundershock was just doing too much damage. And I managed to take it out with 2 HP remaining, but then Magnemite comes out and I realise that I'm in trouble and I'm not going to win this. I decided to go do some more grinding to get myself to level 29, with the understanding that Wanda's not going to listen to me anymore. I also realised I've forgotten I have access to X items in the shop, which are essential for this playthrough. I roid up and Voltorb goes down. I always have to remember that even though I'm roided up, 1 critical hit and it's completely all over. This is because critical hits ignore stat boosts. Now, even with my newfound powers, the Magnemite fight was a pain in the arse. This was a mixture of Wanda getting paralysed and her not listening to me, which resulted in another loss. However, third time was the charm and the battle went a lot better, and I finally managed to get the win. Although after this fight, realisation dawned that I was absolutely terrified of having to fight Lieutenant Surge further down the track. Next was the first battle against Jessie and James, who I absolutely spanked when I originally played through this. I wanted to go in solo, but I had to go in with another Pokemon, so I decided to send a lowly Oddish to help join. This is what I mean why Magikarp couldn't do the run solo. Even using the drugs, this battle was really hard. I also ran out of tackles right at the beginning and I was back to using Struggle again. With a mixture of being poisoned from the coughing, the 2 of them attacking, Struggle and recoil, and Wanda not listening, it took its toll so fast. It took me a good several attempts to get anywhere with this fight. If Coughing managed to poison me while Ekans was still alive, then this is when I restarted the fight. I eventually got it down to a run where Ekans was gone, and from there the fight which was much more manageable. Who would have ever guessed that Jessie and James would be some of the hardest trainers to fight in this game? With them blasting off, I made my way to Cerulean City. I stocked up on goodies to help in the battles ahead and went on my way to the gym, where I was immediately beaten by Goldeen. Second time round, the thing fell with ease, but I was still annoyed due to the fact that Wanda just didn't want to listen throughout the whole fight. I went straight for Misty, and this time was a battle of wills. I managed to get my roids up, and with that I had to deal with their Psyduck confusing me and Wanda not listening to me again. Now I managed to get Psyduck out of the way and onto Starmie, thinking this would be quite easy. However, then Psywave happened. Fucking Psywave. Soundwave doesn't give a set amount of damage, and it can be something very small to something very huge, which meant I had no way of knowing when it was coming. On one attempt I got it down to one more hit, but then she just wouldn't listen. I thought I actually had the fight done one time, but then forgot about the struggle recall and had to redo the whole fight. A few more tries and Misty was done. I've actually done 2 badges now, so we're actually making progress. It meant now that Pokemon level 30 would listen to me, and we're back to the same situation with Brock. I actually realised how little my attack stat had grown throughout this journey. Even though I was adamant and 27 levels higher, my attack stat was just under double a level 3 Oddish. I was dreading the bigger challenges later on. They say that Sunken has the worst stats in the game, compare that to the fish. I headed up to Nugget Bridge to fight my rival and knew that I was not going to have Wanda listen to me very long. I tried the fight without potions but was immediately slammed down. I was able to struggle Pidgey to death and then also his Oddish, and his Eevee wasn't much of a problem either. I just had to manage my own health due to damage taken and the struggle recall. And with that, the rival was out of my way and he'd pissed off again. I managed to get through Nugget Bridge with no dramas and rolled through them before heading to Bill's. I decided to skip a lot of the trainers along the way, seeing as I get experience through catching, and that's all I need to save resources. This was essentially a lot of the run, dodge trainers when I could and use as little resources as possible to save money. I met Bill and sorted out his merger with Nidorino. Personally, I don't know how Nidorino gained that ability, but reasons. Personally, I think Bill was trying to fuck the thing and it went completely wrong. To hide his dirty little sex games, Bill gives me a set of tickets to the SSN, which for some reason I hand over to my rival. I don't know why, I hate the bastard. I head over to Vermilion City using the underground tunnel, and this is where I can find a daily nugget just lying on the floor, but it's a handy way of getting cash for the future run. On the boat I meet my rival once again, and Blue, who decides to warn us to stay away from Team Rocket, which clearly a 10-year-old me is going to ignore. I leave my rival to go meet the captain, however my rival decides to use witchcraft to teleport up to the captain's office and meet me for a battle. Look, we're going to play this in full time. How the hell does he do this? Honestly, just burn the bastard to death. Well, not because of the witchcraft thing, I just hate him as a character. The battles against him are starting to get really hard now, and I've not leveled up much, so I can't really keep control of Wanda's actions. His Pidgeotto has a sand attack, which makes things even harder. I'm now really worried about facing the Oddish, due to its typing, the fact it can put Wanda to sleep, and how poor Wanda's special defense is. The first time I faced him, I thought I had him, but then his Eevee used a quick attack and I struggled and the combined damage led to me fainting. I was a little bit pissed off as I had to go through all the dialogue once again. Second time around, however, I got through it. I met with the captain and stroked his back. Now, I have to ask, how did your rival learn it if the captain was so ill? I think the captain is hiding a little dark secret. Now the captain realises he's been rumbled, we head off the boat. It makes you think, why did we even get on the boat in the first place? Did we know the captain had cut? I don't think we did. Oh well, reasons. It is at this point I need to make a decision about fighting Lieutenant Surge. Judging how bad fighting the Collector was made me think we had no chance due to Lieutenant Surge's Raichu. I decided to head to everyone's favourite place in the whole wide world, the Rock Tunnel. On the way I actually found a shiny Krabby. I was so happy as I love Krabby, so he went straight in the ball. I entered Rock Tunnel with the knowledge I could not use Flash. Due to not being Lieutenant Surge, it meant I couldn't go through Diglett Tunnel to meet the Professor's aide, who would give me Flash. Thankfully, I remember this place at the back of my hand, and it is pretty easy to get through without Flash. Now, I didn't actually record a lot of Rock Tunnel because I did that bit in bed thinking it would be boring for everyone to watch, but my god was it a pain in the arse. I struggled horrendously against a Kadabra due to the reasons of having no money at all, which meant I had to level up to level 45 just to stand a chance. Eventually, after a few days of trying, yes, a few days, I got through and saw the light and ended up where I wanted to be, Celadon City. I went straight for Erica because I knew if I could beat her now, that Wanda would obey me up to level 50. So at level 45 I challenged her. First up was Tangler, who I was never afraid of, and then it did this. Shit. I was crushed as I knew there was nothing I could do at the level I was because Tangler was far too strong, and that was not even taking the Vileplume she had in the back into consideration. It also meant that I had to go back to grinding, and Wanda's not going to listen to me again. I decided to go back after Lieutenant Surge, and with the added levels behind me, this was quite easy. It helped Voltorb use Light Screen, allowing me to go to +4 in special defense, and this made Thunderbolt far more manageable. But I had to remember to watch out for critical hits, as this would probably wipe me out. By this point, I also realised I had Tackle, so no more struggle recall for a while. However, due to the amount of time Wanda refused to listen, I ended up running out of potions, which meant I lost the first match. Second time round was a lot better, and Wanda listened a lot more. I got through to Raichu and it went down with 2 voided attacks. 3 badges done, and I was starting to feel a bit better about this run and the disappointment of Erica. Now I was able to get through Diglett Tunnel, and it meant that I was able to get a lot more money to help with the run. I could get a big pearl from watching the Slowpoke, and I had a chance of getting a nuggets from the underground paths. I would end up doing this every day if I could, as it was an easy way to make money. To get ready for the fight against Erica, I stocked up on a hell of a lot of lemonades, because they would heal more than the super potions, and they were half the price, even though you had to buy one after another, which was a right pain in the arse. With my newly acquired wealth in soda manufacturer, I took on Erica. Giga Drain was still doing nearly half damage, so I knew this was going to be a hard one, and if any criticals came in, it was over. I managed to get my drugs in, and after a few hits, Tangela was down. I struggled against the Weeping Bell because Wanda just would not listen, so I had to keep healing until it ran out of Mega Drains. It's a rubbish way to win, I know. Vileplume was next, and I was absolutely shitting it. Again, due to the mixture of high damage from Mega Drain and the fact that Wanda didn't want to listen, it became extremely hard for me to get into a position to even get an attack in. Once again, Vileplume ended up running out of Mega Drains and switched to Moonblast, which made the fight a lot easier. If the opponent's PP did not actually run out like it did in Generation 1, then I don't think I actually could have done this, even at level 60. Looking back, it wasn't the way I wanted to win the battle at first, but you know what? I don't care. I've done it, I've got the 4th badge, and I can move on. Fighting that Tangela was a right pain in the arse, and it really did put me down when I lost to it the first time. I'm just so happy it's over, and I can move on and continue with the rest of the challenge. I headed back through to Lavender Town to face my rival, but due to the training I did for Erica, I thought I was going to be fine. But this time, with a mixture of Wanda not listening and the sand attack really having an effect, meant I ran out of potions. I decided to fight him again, but this time I brought a guard spec to counter the sand attacks. And second time around, the fight went a lot better than first. I went a little further into the tower, but was blocked off because of the spooky ghost. Now, I always thought this was really strange, as we already have ghost Pokemon. Now, I tried to think what path I was going to take to get Wanda to obey me. I decided to go after Blaine's gym, but before that I needed to beat Team Rocket out of their hideout. Getting through the grunts were nothing special, but again Jessie and James were a problem. Their Pokemon had evolved to Weezing and Arbok, so their stats had increased. I still had the same problem of Weezing poisoning me, but thankfully this time I beat it first time round. I then faced Archer, who also had a Weezing. Typical. I'm coming to really hate Weezing. Oh no, don't worry, not you Galarian Weezing. I love you a hell of a lot. I ended up losing the first time because I went for a tackle instead of healing, and he got a critical hit in with a Dark Pulse. Second time round, being better prepared meant I was able to get the win. Next was the one and only Giovanni, and I really have to apologise for this because for some reason the footage did not save properly, but the fight was so boring, so here is a man painting because this is far more entertaining than watching my match against Giovanni. To sum the battle up, Giovanni had a Rhyhorn and a Persian who were both physical attackers. Wanda's physical defense is actually not that bad, so after a few roids it just meant tapping the A button until I won. I nearly actually fell asleep during the battle because it was that boring. After winning the epic battle against Giovanni, it was time to scale the tower in Lavender Town. Now at this point, if this was Generation 1, the run would have ended there and then, due to Struggle being a normal move, but now Struggle is a typeless move, allowing me to hit the ghosts. But first of all, I had to go back to the first trainers in the game again and splash around. Again. After splashing to my heart's content, I get myself equipped with Just Struggle. I entered the Pokemon Tower and was now able to fight the ghosts with this move. I helped Cubone's mother seek peace. That scene gets me every time. I still don't know how the Sylph Scope works. Plot convenience in my opinion. With the tearful goodbye out the way, I once again go after Jessie and James. It's back to basics thankfully, but this took me a lot longer than I thought because I had to deal with the paralysis, the disobedience, and getting attacked by both of them at the same time. Every time I had a chance to attack, Wanda would refuse, I would get paralysed. Eventually though, I managed to get Arbok out of the way, and with Weezing went down pretty quick. Thank God I haven't got to deal with those two for much longer. I go see Mr. Fuji, who gives me the Poker Flute to wake up Snorlax, and I head straight for the one at Celadon City so I can get to Fuchsia City. I play the funky tune and Snorlax attacks. Now, I am not going to beat this thing in 5 minutes, so I decided to go have a beer and run the clock down. I actually did go and get a beer, and considering all I've been through so far, this was the easiest bit in the game. So after 5 minutes, Snorlax ran away and left my path clear for me to go forward. I made my way south down Route 17 and dodged all the trainers here for picking up any items I can find just in case I could sell them. And I finally arrived in Fuchsia City where I was able to learn surf from a random surfer dude. I then headed to the beach and met up with Jessie and James, who gave me the gold teeth, where I wanted nothing more but to drown them both, even the Meowth. I gave the warden his teeth and he in turn gave me the move strong push. Oh come on, can't we just call it strength? Is this a political correctness thing or something? With surf in hand, or whatever it's called, I made my way back to Pallet Town, where I headed south and managed to dodge everyone. I then arrived on Cinnabar Island in the hopes of challenging Blaine. I went straight to the abandoned mansion so I can get the key for Blaine's gym. And inside I fought a scientist who had an electrode, which is a big worry due to having Thunderbolt. The first time I faced it, I was setting up when he decided to crit me, and Wanda fainted. The second time round, when it was all set up, it went down pretty quickly. Next was its Muck, and it nearly took me 10 minutes to beat it because of the amount of times Wanda didn't want to fight it. Thankfully, eventually Muck did go down and I was on my merry way. I gathered the key and entered Blaine's gym. Now, you know what I'll say this about Blaine's gym? I absolutely love it. It makes it a little bit different from what we normally have and makes Blaine himself much more lovable character. The fight itself though was an absolute joke due to its typing. Once I was set up, I managed to get through his team quite easily, and this was due to the fact they couldn't do enough damage to me. And with that I obtained the 5th gym badge. But then I realised that it wasn't actually Blaine's badge that I needed to raise the levels for Wanda to listen to me. I won't lie, but I was starting to get disheartened by all of this again. I decided to pick myself up and do the route I normally do and went after Silphco. Both my rival and Blue had also arrived, but Blue felt it was necessary to test me first. Don't worry mate, there is a hostage situation going on at the moment. Let's have a Pokemon battle. Also, where the hell are the police at this point? This place should be swarming with armed police, but not one of them had bothered to turn up. So Blue starts off with his Executor, who does a lot of damage with Power Whip, but thankfully I'm able to roid the damage down. It takes me forever to get Executor out of the way, due to the sheer amount of instructions that Wanda was ignoring. I was so happy when it went down because I knew Charizard was next and it posed no threat, and that was duly confirmed because it really didn't. Because of all this, Blue believed that I was ready to go on and take a hostage situation, which would realistically result in my death. Thankfully, I know the quick way of doing this rather than going through every floor one by one. I got stopped by Archer and a Grunt to have a double battle alongside my rival. This did take me quite a while, and the rival's team is only handy to have because he acts as a distraction so I can roid up. He starts off with a Cubone, and then when that faints, he sends out a Pidgeot. Hang on, why the fuck didn't you start with that? You have a freaking Pidgeot. After the usual not listening bollocks, we ended up winning because Jolteon actually got the KO, not Wanda, which shows how much of an arse she's been. I run up to try and be the hero and yet again meet up with Jessie and James. Now Weezing has Thunderbolt, fantastic, which ends up getting a crit and wiping me out. Second time round it gets a lot better and I finally take them both out. That's it, they're done, we won't be seeing those bastards again in the video, thank God. I meet up with Giovanni, who is trying to broker a deal with the Silphco president, so I decide to butt in and hit him with my fish. This is an easy battle as it was before, because once the defense drugs are in, it was just a matter of mashing the A button again. I knock out his Nidoking and Giovanni does one as calm as you like, really. He's not even asked. I get the Master Ball as a prize, but honestly I don't know what I'm going to do with the thing. With Team Rocket cleared out the way, I go after Sabrina. I get through her annoying portals, which drove me nuts when I was 11 years old. Christ, I'm freaking old. I'm 32 now, I'm married with a kid. Maybe I should grow up and start playing Pokemon. So the battle starts against Mr. Mime, and he's not really doing much damage, but he gave me plenty of time to get the drugs on board. However, once again, due to the fact Wanda wouldn't listen, it was giving Mr. Mime a chance to lower my special defense with Psychic, which was going to be a problem down the line. Next came Slowbro, and this was not fun at all. It came equipped with Yawn, which was able to put me to sleep after 2 turns, and considering Wanda was still not freaking listening to me, it meant that this was going to be a real uphill battle. However, then it started to use Calm Mind, and I shit myself. There was no way I'd be able to fight this if it were Calm Minded to the max, and I had absolutely no chance. Oddly enough, it didn't do that. The only reason this went downhill was because I ran out of healing items. I managed to get rid of Slowbro, but it took way too much out of Wanda. Then Sabrina sent out Jinx, and it came equipped with Lovely Kiss. I actually realised I didn't have enough Awakenings anymore, so I had to try and wait this out. Unbelievably, I actually managed to finish off Jinx, but my glee was short-lived as Alakazam came out and finished the job due to my lack of recovery. I didn't actually try this battle again, as I thought this was going to be lost if Slowbro actually did Calm Mind, so I thought I'm going to waste a lot of time doing this. So instead, I decided to go after Koga to see if that would make a difference. Now, I always hated Koga when I was younger. I have no idea why though, as I love ninjas. I can't get enough of them. But in the battle that followed, I remembered why. Koga constantly uses Toxic and Protect to try and stall out the battle, which is a right pain in the arse. Again, add this in with the fact that Wanda didn't want to listen, and it meant the amount of times I did attack were few and far between. The first time I battled Koga, I was undone by a Muck getting a critical Sludge Bomb in, which I couldn't believe. The second time round, I managed to break through his Muck. However, his Golbat was a flyer, so again it gave him more chances to dodge, and of course it had Protect. Eventually it went down, his Venomoth was absolutely nothing, and that fell very quickly as well. With 6 badges in hand, and to my surprise, this was the badge I did need to get Wanda to listen to me. I was really happy that we actually had each other, at least for now. But I also knew the next Sabrina battle would be completely different. And so it was, because once the drugs kicked in, I made short work of her. See, this is what happens if we work together, you dumb fish. 7 badges down, and 1 more to go. I head to Viridian to face the big old bad himself, and unlike the other gym battles, this one was extremely easy. Use X defense and the job's done. Magikarp's defense, as I said earlier, is not that bad compared to his special defense, and his team had nothing that could truly worry me, even with critical hits. And with that, we successfully collected all 8 badges, and it was time to take on the Pokemon League. Who'd believe we would have actually got this far? In preparation for future challenges, I got myself a Caterpie and a Weedle. I'll explain why I did this later on, but I decided to call my Weedle Rehabzilla because he had way too much alcohol in his system and I was being influenced by another Weedle to do bad things. I am not going to mention that Weedle's name. Before we go fight the Elite Four, we had to fight our rival again, and honestly, this was a right pain in the arse. The problem was twofold. One, his Pidgey had Air Slash, which did a heck of a lot of damage, and it kept using Sand Attack. Now, I did have guard specs to deal with this, but I was looking after the baby at the time, so I was finding it hard to keep track of where I was, so he was getting free shots to throw sand in my face, plus it had Roost, so I was wasting my recovery items and I needed every hit to count. Unfortunately, I had to keep going until he did run out of Roost, which I don't like doing that, but I didn't have the amount of damage it needed to beat it in 2 hits. Next came his Vileplume, and this was very stressful. Vileplume had Petal Dance, which is similar to Outrage and Thrash. It was doing super effective damage, and the problem was that the move went on for about 2 or 3 turns, but it actually only used PP for the first time it used the move. So if it's got like 10 PP, which I think it did, it can be hitting me up to 20 or 30 times, which means it took me forever to get in a position just to get a hit in because of the amount of damage Petal Dance was doing. Sadly, I had to use a tactic of once again waiting for the PP to run out, and then I was still really low on healing items with Jolteon to come. Thankfully, it wasn't as tough as I thought it was going to be, and I was able to get rid of it and Marowak with relative ease. So I sent my rival on his merry way to go face the Pokemon League first, when in reality I should have just killed him and buried his body. I went through all the checkpoints showing off all the guards my well-earned badges. There's a few things I want to point out here, and it's been on my mind for quite a while. Firstly, why are the 2 of the guards in the water? What an absolute shit job they've got to do. Oh, just wait here until someone decides to swim by and then somehow check the pockets. Second, how does that guard know that I have Lieutenant Surge's autograph? Did he give me a strip search or something and they're just not showing it? And third, why are the guards spread out? Now, I never understood this when I was a kid, but thankfully they improved on the system much later on. I entered Victory Road hoping to be in and out quite quickly. The one concern I had was going up Venusaur, because that thing had Solar Beam and it straight out destroyed me straight away. I couldn't believe it and was so disheartened because I thought I was going to have to start grinding again. However, I looked back at the footage and realised I'd only actually used 1x special defense rather than 3. So I attempted it again and made sure I took all my drugs, and this time I survived the Solar Beam, which meant I was able to get through it. See kids, drugs are good. The rest of the cave was pretty uneventful and I managed to come out into the light. I stood outside the Indigo Plateau where Pikachu tried to make it out that she'd done all the work. Murderfish went straight up to the front door, and then we realised I had all my splashes intact, so... We arrived at the Elite Four. Wanda and I went to show them who was boss. I can't believe we actually got this far, and it's been such a long and hard journey. First up was Lorelai, and this wasn't that bad really. Her Dugong just kept using Waterfall, which was doing bugger all damage, and allowed me to get my drugs in. Once the roids were in, it was just a matter of time. I just had to make sure I managed my health correctly, and then the Slowbro got a crit on his Psychic. Shit. So, critical hits still ruined my day. So we jumped back in, and this time I got rid of Slowbro with no critical hits taken. Lapras and Cloyster went down pretty easy, and after that I was now 1 member down. I healed up and went on to take Bruno. He started with Onix, whose Earthquake did absolutely nothing at all. He was still able to tank the hits from my tackle, but after a lot of tackling myself it went down. Hitmonchan came out and I was worried because I knew it had a punch, but it did absolutely nothing at all and I brushed the thing aside. Next was Poliwrath, who started using Superpower, which meant the more he attacked me, the easier it actually became. And Bruno obviously thought that this strategy was working because he made his Machamp do exactly the same thing, so I sent that thing packing as well. Hitmonlee was a pushover as well, and they all fell to Wanda. 2 down, 2 to go. It sounds like I'm actually rushing through these, but honestly these challenges weren't as hard as some of the gym leader battles I've faced up to this point. Next up was Agatha, who really is Professor Oak in drag. I really can't unsee that. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't looking forward to this battle at all. I powered up against the Arbok, and as much as I could, I made sure that between it and the Weezing, I used all my tackles PP. Beating Arbok was more difficult than I actually thought it would be, because it kept paralysing me and poisoning me, which meant it took me a while to get into an attackable position. Weezing went down, and thankfully it didn't get me with a critical Thunderbolt. And now on to one of the main problems on this run, Gengar. Gengar had to be struggled to hit it, and like Arbok, it was difficult to get into position to attack it due to the mixture of high damage from Sludge Bomb, the poisoning, and it using Will-O-Wisp. Add in that struggle was taking 1/4 of my health each time, and this is why it's also impossible to complete the game without items. Even a level 100 Magikarp would not be able to one-shot the Gengar, and with struggle taking 1/4 off the Carp's health each time, it would mean that you would run out of health very quickly. I managed to get rid of the first Gengar and was on to the second, where it was more of the same. I got so lucky as it got a crit on Wanda, but then I was saved by the friendship mechanic, and then it got actually poisoned from this, but then it got expelled straight away rather than knock Wanda out. However, next turn it got me again with poison status, and that was the end of that. I tried again and got hit once again with a critical, and again I fainted. The third time was a charm and I got through the second Gengar. Golbat was easy as anything, and this was the end of female Professor Oak. Now on to the final member of the Elite Four, who was Lance, who started off with a Seadra. Seadra wasn't doing enough damage, and combined it with using Hyper Beam allowed me to get my roids in. After that I went on the attack, and none of Lance's Pokemon posed much of a threat. Even the mighty Gyarados fell to his little brother. One by one they all fell to Wanda until Lance was no more. And I can't believe it, I've actually done it. I beat the Elite Four with just a fish. But we all know there's one more to go, and we all know that it's my rival. I walk up and see the smirky bastard. Okay, that ball throw was pretty cool. You can have that one. So here we go, Wanda versus Not Blue. He starts with Mega Pidgey and oh my god does it hit like a truck. I'm really worried that I'm not going to have enough healing items to get through this fight considering what happened the last time. Thankfully it doesn't have Sand Attack. I managed to get all my drugs in but have to heal a hell of a lot due to how much damage Air Slash is doing. And after I was thinking I was nearly there, my rival decided to use a full restore. What a fucking cheat. It's a fucking outrage you can use healing items. Finally, after getting all his PP out the way, I take it down. I still have 5 more Pokemon to go though. Next was Vileplume, and I was already worried about the mass Petal Dances coming my way. However, it switched moves from Petal Dance to Solar Beam. I surely thought I would survive considering what happened with Venusaur, but it wiped me out in one hit and it wasn't even a critical. I couldn't believe it. I tried it again and once again I was wiped out. There was nothing I could do at the current level I was at due to the sheer power of Solar Beam. I was absolutely gutted because I'd used a hell of a lot of resources to get to this point as well. So I had absolutely no choice to go back to the grind again, and I got Wanda up to level 86. Taking on the Elite Four this time was a bit easier, and this time I was doing a lot more damage to the Gengars, which struggle actually doing 2 hits rather than 3. I got myself back to the rival again, and once the roids were in, it was time to face that monster that was Vileplume. It was all going to come down to how much damage was going to be taken with Solar Beam. My tackle was doing enough to take it down in 4 moves, and with it using Reflect turn 1, it meant I only had to survive 1 Solar Beam. I won't lie, I was absolutely terrified at this point, but thankfully I held on and managed to knock it out first try. Next was Jolteon, who I was equally terrified about. Both it and Vileplume was super effective against Wanda, and 1 critical hit would wipe her out. Thankfully this did not happen, and the Lightning Fox dog thing went down. Slowbro was next, and this was another where a crit could mean doom, but yet again I was lucky and nothing occurred. I got to his Marowak and I could see the finish line. Marowak had nothing and it fell under the power of Wanda. And I couldn't believe it. Wanda has done it. She has beaten the Elite Four on her own. I have finished Pokemon Let's Go and Pikachu with just a Magikarp. Professor Oak takes us to get Wanda recorded into the Hall of Fame like the hero she is. And now it's time to reflect. Was this a fun challenge? No, it was not. It's been draining, with many late nights and early mornings. I've nearly thrown the switch a few times in frustration. I've been pushed to the edge by this floppy orange fish. However, as you'll probably notice, there is still a while to go left on the video. Well, you'd be correct. There's post-game now available, and of course I'm going to do it. So the first thing we need to do is go back and fight the gym leaders again. After you become the champion, they all want a rematch and have powered up their teams to try and dethrone you. So to start this properly, I got Wanda to level 100 by catching a lot of Chansey's and using rare candies I had. I also figured out there was a spawning rare candy spot, which would have been very handy to know at the beginning of this challenge. So first, I went after Brock and his rock Pokemon. This was one of the easier ones, and once the drugs were in, nothing he had could really trouble us. So Wanda was about to smash them through, and as long as we had no silly crits, which we didn't, we had no problem. So Brock fell, and it was on to Misty. Misty again was very easy due to nothing being really able to hurt Wanda. I still love seeing Wanda smash a Gyarados. And that was 2 down, 5 to go. Don't worry, I can count. Lieutenant Surge was next, and this wasn't fun. I wasn't looking forward to this or Erica for obvious reasons. I needed to drug up as quick as possible, and Electrode was not a good Pokemon to set up on. Thankfully it only had Thunderbolt and not Thunder, and I was able to set it up. It's also worth noting that in the next 2 gyms, if any of those 10 Pokemon hit Wanda with a critical hit, then it is Goodnight Irene. Each attack my heart was in its mouth, thinking that a critical hit was coming at any moment. He brought out Magneton, which was going to take a lot of hits to go down, and somehow no crits occurred. Electabuzz was no problem, and I knew the Raichu would go down in 2, and it did. And with that, Lieutenant Surge short-circuited. That was a mouthful. Erica, my secret lover, was next. First up was that bloody Tangler again, and yes, I was defeated by it yet again. Why? Because it had Power Whip and Mega Drain. Each of them would do huge damage to me, but as long as I made sure I picked the right drug to use first, I was okay. Thankfully, I got it right second time round, and with the drugs in, Tangler went down. Parasect wasn't too much of a problem, even with Solar Beam. Executor and her Victreebel went down easily as well. I was waiting for Razor Leaf from Victor, but it actually never came. Finally was our own Vileplume, but I was not worried having faced my rivals one earlier on in the video, and it went down exactly the same. I was now feeling a lot more confident going into the final gym rematches. Blaine was next, and I'm not even going to go through this, it was piss easy, so Blaine fell to Wanda as well. Sabrina went exactly the same as it did the first time round. Once I was all set up, which was very easy thanks to Mr. Mime, I demolished her team. I got to Alakazam knowing 2 hits would finish it off, but then it actually hit me with a Psychic, and oh thank fuck. Thanks game mechanics. So with a bit of luck, I beat her with 1 HP remaining. Koga was the last on the gym rematches, and this was more of a pain. Why? Because his Tentacruel had Mega Drain, that's why. After a lot of healing items and getting rid of the poison, I was able to get rid of it. Weezing then decided to scare me as it had Thunder along with Toxic, but it was not doing the damage to really trouble Wanda until it... Thanks again, game mechanics. After that scare, the rest of this team fell like dominoes. And with that, all but one of the gym leaders were now redone. Now we're not finished, as the Elite Four have also had a boost in their levels, and it'd be wrong of me not to go fight them again. Each member now has 6 Pokemon and 1 Alone variant in there. Lorelai went exactly the same as it has done, and even with her Alone Sandslash, it was just more time wasting than an actual risk to Wanda, so she fell and let me go through the next door. Bruno was exactly the same as well, but has had to be on my toes for his Alone Golem, who would have finished me off if it got a critical Thunder Punch. But this never happened, which meant with that, Bruno was slapped out of the way, and the fun ones are now coming up. I go to Agatha's Gengar and realise that I made a huge mistake. I forgot to get rid of all my splashes, and I was furious with myself. I went through the Elite Four again, and got to Gengar this time and my splashes gone. Happily for me, the Ghosts went down in 2 hits, so it was just a case of managing the recoil damage from Struggle. Marowak was also no problem, and down it went. Agatha is now out of my life, and hopefully I'm not going to be seeing her again for a long, long time. At first, I wasn't really worried about Lance due to how easy it was last time I faced him. Seadra, like before, just let me use my drugs and get ready as it swept aside. However, then came Alone Executor, and it had a powerful Mega Drain. Now, I had enough health items to take it down, it was just going to take time, but then it hit me with a critical Mega Drain which ended Wanda's run. Annoyingly, this happened a few times until I was able to finally get rid of it, but once this was done, his Dragonite and Mega Charizard X posed no problem to me at all, and went down fairly easily. The game's end was nearly in sight, and it was time to fight the rival once again, and I thought it would be the same as last time, but then his Mega Pidgey completely threw him by using U-turn into Vileplume before I was fully set up. This meant Wanda had to take a lot more Solar Beams than last time before going on the attack. Sadly, she couldn't hold out and fell to a crit. Second time around, I managed to get rid of Vileplume, but then Jolteon got in on the act, and then he gave Wanda a critical Thunder. Thankfully, third time around, I got rid of them both, and I was so close. I cleared up his Marowak, Slowbro, Rapidash and Mega Pidgeot without much concern. Once again, Wanda had beaten the odds and defeated the Elite Four. I was so proud of it. But wait, we're still not done, as there's just a few more things to do. First of all, I wanted to summon the hardest trainer in the game, and to do this I had to beat 6 Master Trainers. Now a lot of these were beefed up with Pokemon candies, and items were not allowed in these battles, so it was not going to be very fun. So I decided to get a bunch of winners to help me do this for me. First up was Caterpie, who I caught earlier on along with the Weedle. Caterpie was able to slowly tackle his way to victory, and I then let him evolve into Metapod and take on the Metapod challenge. Oh wow, was this a thrilling match. It was a Harden fest with a lot of string shotting, and it came down to who would run out of PP first. And due to his Metapod being faster, he ended up being knocked out by the recoil damage from Struggle. What an epic match. Fantastic, you'd pay good money for that. Next was Chauncey, and this was just so easy. Just click Toxic and there you go. Toxic was going to help big time in these battles. Chauncey easily shrugged off any damage thrown at it due to its high HP. Growlithe was a little bit cheeky. The opposing Growlithe would normally use Dig, which meant I could protect when it popped back up. I just had to wait until it used another move to get my Toxic in, and once it landed, then it was just for me to town the Protect well. Fearow is exactly the same. It would go for Sky Attack each time. So first turn use Toxic, and then second turn use Protect, and wait for the poison to run its course. My final battle was with a powered up Rehabzilla, who managed to poison sting its kin to death. It wasn't a very fun battle, but hey, it got the job done. With Rehabzilla's epic win, it meant that I'd been able to summon the Demon Trainer, but we'll get onto him in a bit. Next, I wanted to actually battle Green. However, to get to her, you had to first catch Mewtwo, so I ventured into the depths of the Cerulean Cave, where I came face to face with the original Generation 1 Bad Boy. Now I had 5 minutes to beat this thing, and its stats were also raised, so I used my first Special X defense, and well, fuck. The amount of damage it was doing meant I was never going to be healing it off. It also had access to recover, which means taking it out in 5 minutes was going to be completely out of the question. With this, I have to accept that I'm not going to be able to fight Green, and this game is not going to be 100% done. I next went off to Blue, who was the new Viridian City Gym leader. See, I didn't forget. I've always loved Blue ever since I was 11 years old because he's so damn cool. He started off with the Tauros, which is fine as it allowed me plenty of time to set up as his moves had nowhere near the firepower needed. He then sent out his own Executor, which could have been a pain in the arse, but it had Power Whip rather than Mega Drain, which is much easier to deal with. Next was his Gyarados, and we all know how that ended up. Aerodactyl was also sent packing, much to my joy, as was Alakazam, who went down in 2 hits. Finally, he sent out his Mega Charizard Y, and it baffles me why he did not have a Blastoise. His Charizard used Hyper Beam, which only really helps Wonder with recovery, and a few more tackles, it was done. I was breathing a sigh of relief as there was only one more trainer left to face, and it was by far the hardest challenge the game had to offer. I went back to Indigo Plateau and faced off against the game's original protagonist and the strongest trainer in the whole of the Pokemon series, Red. I sent out Wanda and he sent out Pikachu. However, I quickly realised that I could not use items and this was not going to go very well. Pikachu used Thunderbolt, which poor Wanda managed to hang on by 1 HP due to the friendship mechanic. However, it wasn't enough as she was soon put out of her misery the next turn. There is no way, sadly, for Wanda to win against Pikachu, let alone win the whole battle. And with that defeat, the challenge was over. Oh, hang on, one last thing for me to do. That's better. So, to answer the question, could you complete Pokemon Let's Go with just a Magikarp? The answer is, kinda. Whilst I did defeat all the story mode had to offer, there was unfortunately no way I was going to be able to fight Green or even beat Red. It's been a long road and I'm so happy it's all done. One day I may do another challenge with Wonder, as the carp will always be in a Pokemon game. As you can imagine, this video took a hell of a long time for me to make, so I'd really appreciate any likes or shares. I'm happy to answer any questions in the comments below, and feel free to laugh at all the stupid things I did during this challenge. And if you've stuck around for the whole thing, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. And I'm HBT, and she's been a fish called Wanda. And until next time everyone, bye bye.